Hello everyone. Today I want to talk to you about transport layer security and why it's such a mess. Transport layer security is the de facto standard on how to organize and use cryptography for network security. TLS libraries are now used not just to protect the privacy of the information you send and receive to a website. It's also used for complementary network services such as DNS, SEC, and resource public infrastructure. I'll explain what those are just a little bit later. For now, I want to talk about why TLS is so important. Without transport layer security, or TLS for short, all the information we send and receive to a web server can be viewed by someone else. TLS was invented to ensure all our communication with a website is private and only known between us and the web server. Throughout history, attackers have captured network packets sent or to be received by clients. This can disclose sensitive information such as passwords, bank credentials, government ID, or personal identifiable information managed by a hospital. This is an attack known as the man-in-the-middle attack. Over here, I gave a quick list of approved algorithms in TLS 1.3, the most recent version of TLS. If you don't know what these algorithms are, I strongly recommend you pause this video and you research what they are. A great book that I recommend for you to learn what these are is Serious Cryptography by No Starch Press. This is an excellent introductory book to modern cryptography. If you already read that, you can then read Bulletproof TLS and PKI, 2nd edition by Ivan Ristic, a must-read. Ristic gives a strong review of the pros and cons of selecting between various cipher suites that you see here, and the infamous attacks that affected TLS. I'll give a brief description of the history of TLS. It began with Netscape, and later the Internet Engineering Task Force, the organization that publishes requests for comments, like the one you see above, have standardized TLS. So, let me say it again. The Internet Engineering Task Force standardizes TLS. Most of the algorithms you see here are a family of federal government-approved algorithms. The only exception is Cha-Cha-20, Poly 1305. Throughout history, TLS has suffered from major vulnerabilities, and this is because cryptography is very hard to program correctly. Most of the federal government-approved algorithms are not easy to program right. You can easily program them in such a way where several different attacks can confiscate the secret, including the infamous timing attack, an attack where the attacker measures the time duration of program execution to discover the secret. Now, I have to give a caveat about timing attacks. Throughout most of my life, I've been thinking timing attacks are a massive danger. But when I read an article by Thomas Portman, the lead maintainer of the Bare SSL TLS library, he mentioned that in the real world, timing attacks are not easy to pull off. They're easy to pull off in a research environment. That's why you see timing attacks talked about on paper so much. But in reality, Thomas Portman himself has no recollection of any real case where an attacker successfully pulled off a timing attack against a cryptographic library. What's saying? You should still worry about timing attacks. They can steal the secret remotely. They can steal the cryptographic secret, even if the attacker has access to a remote internet connection to your machine. So I will repeat the history of TLS once again. TLS began with Netscape. The first few versions were terrible, so they quickly revised it several times. The Internet Engineering Task Force later standardized TLS into what we see it today. The main reason for vulnerabilities, as I said earlier, is that most of the cryptographic algorithms are difficult to program right. Cryptographic developers were not mindful of the reality of the new security vulnerabilities that are now documented and are a standard risk, like timing attacks. That's why this is such a huge problem. I mean, elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman wasn't, nor RSA, nor elliptic curve digital signature algorithm. None of these algorithms were designed with timing attacks in mind, so they're hard to program securely. Yet the federal government insists on using them. Recently, the federal government actually approved of NIST post-quantum safe algorithms. Those are actually naturally supposed to be resistant to timing attacks, but I kid you not, some researchers have actually published papers so they successfully pull off a timing attack even against the post-quantum safe implementations. So, I will say it again, programming cryptography properly is hard. Don't think it's easy. If you visit the link here, you can read more on what Feisty Duck, the website managed by Ivan Ristic, has to say about TLS vulnerabilities. Some of these vulnerabilities are actually trivial problems, like random generation. There used to be an actual security vulnerability in Debian that caused the insecure generation of random secrets. I found people insecurely generating random secrets for cryptography at work before, so it's actually, don't think that's an uncommon problem. It happens a lot. In fact, random generation of secrets is such a huge issue that Thomas Portman avoided having to rely on random generation to make his constant-time cryptographic library. He did a bunch of other programming tricks, and to be honest, I think he made the right decision because, as you will see below, BearSSL has most of its implementations as constant time, with the exception of HMAC Blake 2. So if TLS is so important, why is it flooded by so many security problems? If you really want to understand why TLS is such a huge issue, you would be better off trying to start with the broken history of the internet. Nothing made by human beings is meant to hit perfection. The internet, it was never designed with the idea that people around the world will be communicating with each other from one corner of the earth from another. The internet was designed by computer scientists that were trying to communicate from one university in the same state, even though they were physically close to each other. Stanford University versus UCLA. UCLA sent the proper message. The Stanford computer crashed. That's the real story of the beginning of the internet. A bunch of computer nerds at universities were just trying to talk to each other. So you can see why security wasn't that big of a concern. No one at that time would seriously think that the internet would be such a booming economic success that it is today. That would be an idea that would cause laughter amongst the crowd at that time. But of course, the internet took off, and it's a smash hit. Just like the broken story of the history of the internet, TLS was not written by expert cryptographers. The first few versions were haphazardly made in a startup called Netscape. Now, you have to tell you how startups really work. They basically try to roll out code as fast as possible. I just told you cryptographic software development is extremely difficult to pull off. So imagine a guy trying to write cryptographic code in a matter of a span of a few days, or weeks, or a month, or a year. If you take a look at the Feisty Duck article I mentioned earlier, you will see why the first version had so many vulnerabilities. It was haphazardly made with little thought and care on how secure it is. It's crazy how security engineers insist you never roll your own cryptography, and yet the people that develop cryptography at famous companies are not cryptographic gods anyway. They're just people doing their best in the unideal situation they're stuck in. So, and I don't want you comparing yourself to these top companies and think you should start rolling your own cryptographic code. You shouldn't. Keep in mind, these top companies, despite dealing with the mess the modern world is, still have a dedicated team to test the security of cryptographic software. Either that, or they actually work with the federal government, and the federal government directly tests the security of the cryptographic software. So I will repeat again, do not compare yourself to them. Get a professional team to test your software. Attend security conferences to meet people like that. Speaking of the federal government, I would like to issue a digression here. The TLS libraries federal governments and the world's most famous prestigious businesses and universities rely on are actually bloated and fraught with security problems anyway. I'm not just talking about OpenSSL like I usually do on this site. Just look at the below table comparing several TLS libraries and their security vulnerabilities and timing attacks. This is actually a table of all the famous cryptographic libraries. Notice a good number of them actually have a surprising amount of timing attack vulnerabilities. OpenSSL, WolfSSL, Embed TLS, Bolton, LibSodium especially. I was shocked to see this. It was like, what? This is one of my favorite TLS libraries, and it has security vulnerabilities like this? Unbelievable. Finally, we have HACL star. Now, I want to issue that digression once again. In the real world, timing attacks are difficult to pull off, but they can still work in practice. So it's not like we should ignore this problem completely. I actually like BearSSL because Thomas Portman, the man who wrote it, wrote clean, correct, secure code that could actually function in an embedded development environment, and he programmed it with constant time programming in mind correctly. I mean, if you really care about cryptographic development, I would strongly recommend you visit BearSSL's website, bearssl.org. It is a goldmine of information on how to do constant time cryptographic software development. So, the only two libraries that truly did an excellent job of constant time cryptography are Google's Boring SSL, hats off to the team, and BearSSL by Thomas Portman. What I think is funny is that BearSSL is not even FIPS 140 validated. Let me give you a brief introduction to what that means. So, in order for cryptographic code to be executed by the federal government, it has to pass a test called FIPS 140 certification. Without that, the government will never use your cryptographic code. Don't you find that ironic? You would expect the libraries that are FIPS 140 validated, like OpenSSL or WolfSSL, to be at the top of their game here. They're not. So, I'm trying to teach a simple lesson here. People don't really care much about the strength of the security of the library as they ideally should. OpenSSL has the highest market share, yet it is known to suffer from common trivial vulnerabilities like buffer overflow vulnerabilities or timing attacks. OpenSSL is famous not because it's a paradigm of how cryptographic development should work. It is anything but a paradigm. The real reason why it's successful is because OpenSSL strives to meet as many people's business needs as fast as possible. It's meant to run on any machine architecture. It's meant to run on powerful machines that speed up and protect the secrecy of cryptographic keys. There are machines for this called hardware security modules. If you don't know what that is, I strongly recommend you pause this video now and look this up. Hardware security modules are the machines that protect business secrets from being stolen by malware. Your banks use them. Cloudflare uses them. AWS uses them. You should know what a hardware security module is if you're serious about cryptography. Without them, businesses would not be able to protect user privacy as the user base scales. And OpenSSL, for what it's worth, is one of the few TLS libraries that actually support the use of hardware security modules in a business environment. The only other option that actually does this is GNU TLS. OpenSSL, unfortunately, is poorly written and not carefully reviewed by other cryptographic developers for correctness and security. It is one of the messiest code bases ever. I remember talking to a colleague about this, and he just showed me an article called OpenSSL is for Monkeys. And to get an idea of what that means, just download the OpenSSL codebase and you'll get to see just how messy the code is. You will come out with your hair standing on end being like, how the F did you actually manage to publish this and get people to trust it? But it's still the most successful TLS library anyway. And again, it's because it satisfies business demands for scaling with growing user bases. The better of a job you do serving customers, the more likely people are going to end up using your cryptographic code. I'm not saying that's the best reason. I'm just saying that's how the world works. It shouldn't work that way. It does. Again, hardware security modules are the technology allowing businesses to protect online privacy as user bases grow. And OpenSSL is one of the few libraries that has strong community support and actually supports the use of advanced hardware security modules like Thales. Thales hardware security modules are famous for their use in the business world. I'm not saying I blame OpenSSL. They are so underfunded, it's criminal. So underfunded and understaffed, we just can't blame them. They receive less than $9,000 per year, on average. Yeah, and that's the de facto TLS library the world's top companies and the US government relies on. That's not just sad, it's terrifying. It honestly makes me wonder how strong the leader is. He must have an amazing amount of caliber to really pull something like this off. How do you get people motivated enough to actually work on something this backbreakingly hard? And even if it means low pay. The real way OpenSSL manages to make ends meet is by signing a contract with a company, helping them deploy OpenSSL in their business environment. But of course, not many companies care about paying for that because you can just find enough online articles learning how to use OpenSSL anyway. OpenSSL is not the only TLS library whose security quality badly needs more scrutiny. One of the worst problems I see in TLS libraries is that they're difficult for people to use. It's not just OpenSSL. Pretty much every other cryptographic library that I mentioned here is going to be difficult to use, except for libsodium. That's the easiest one to use, but it has constant timing attack problems. I have yet to see what it's like using BearSSL, but I'm actually suspecting it's going to be easy to use. If the code's clean, you can have a good, reliable assurance that even the API documentation is clean. I'll get back to you later on that. I'll see about that. So it's a problem in the world of cryptographic development. The people that develop cryptographic libraries fail to be empathetic to the people that rely on them, but are outside of their domain of expertise. As a security developer, you must have the empathy to determine if what you are saying is something your audience understands. But in the real world, cryptographic libraries are muddy with esoteric documentation, sometimes even crappy, and I already mentioned how crappier the code can be. This is why the top second OWASP failure are cryptographic ones. Normal software engineers can't understand how to use cryptography since the people that developed the software did not do a good job communicating their ideas to them. Most of the problems in the security world are communication issues, and lack of good communication breeds security problems. So about lack of good documentation. This actually reminds me of how a lack of education breeds lack of good practice. It's not just that there's a lack of documentation, there's also a lack of education on how cryptography is supposed to be used properly. We still have businesses relying on RSA to digitally sign our documents, to verify our payments, and to protect our online communication. RSA is an earlier public key crypto system that is significantly easier to steal secrets from much more easily than modern ones. RSA is very easy to program insecurely. That's a huge problem with it. It's also easier to crack open. So why is the weaker cryptographic algorithm used more often in reality? And I'm going to tell the real reason why. Community support for community crypto systems is what's actually crucial for adoption, not the technical caliber. From my research, I noticed older crypto systems have stronger community support than newer ones. Until the community support for newer crypto systems rivals that of the previous one, do not expect outdated previous cryptographic systems to go extinct to be replaced by better ones. What do I mean by community support? The stronger the community support for a cryptographic solution, the easier it is for someone to contact a member of the security community and solve practical problems with the crypto system. Think about this. How much easier is it for you to make use of RSA to protect a file you want to keep secret compared to the new post-quantum safe public key crypto systems? In the past, I have found online block tutorials to make use of GNU-PG, any TLS library, even pocket-sized software security modules such as my YubiKey, to protect and encrypt my documents under RSA. Now, I want you to try this. I want you to find a tutorial of dilithium to protect your online communication or to sign your documents. I'm not even going to explain what dilithium is on purpose. I'm trying to make my point clear here. Pause this video and try to find online articles on how to use dilithium to do the same things you can do with RSA when it comes down to signing digital documents, if not encrypting them. I'll wait. Pause the video. You didn't manage to find much, did you? The only good resource I found was Wolf SSL, which supports the algorithm in their software. Hats off to the team. So I want to make my point clear here. We need more people that can teach people that are struggling to use this life-changing technology to protect their freedom of speech and online privacy. What's sad is that it is easy to program newer crypto systems such as dilithium versus older ones such as RSA. Yet they lack adoption due to lack of community support. And in order to get good community support, you need good documentation. It's a must. You might be wondering why on earth developers didn't already figure this out. The truth is they know. It's that they don't want to pull the weight, and I'm going to tell you why. It is truly sad how I could easily find a production-ready solution for what I just said above for dilithium that offers you a commercial solution instead of simple educational material. It means the world values easy do-it-for-me solutions compared to the actual thing that is good for you, being scaled at using cryptography and adapting what's available to suit your needs. This would do a lot to improve the situation for online privacy, not just relying on an off-the-shelf solution. The industry obviously values profit more than good practice. Famous security professionals such as Marcus Rynum have already complained about this. Read that article, by the way. It's one of the best internet security articles I ever read. The sad truth is, good teaching material alone does not pay well. Coders need to eat, and people pay for convenience, less so education. People don't actually want to build their own skills through serious work. They would rather use their money to let someone else do their hard work for them. That's why you see organizations use outdated infrastructure and outdated security in general, not just in cryptography. No one wants to go through the hassle of educating human beings to upgrade their skill set in cybersecurity. Doing the right thing costs money, dude. But that's the right thing to do. I originally began writing this article having no idea I would reach these conclusions, but now that I wrote that, I have to admit, not only do we need better education, we need to figure out better ways to reward people for it, or we will be stuck in this drag where we cannot move on to better security solutions for the future. No one is going to go through the effort of training other people in good cryptographic practice unless they earn enough to outsource the tasks they should not be spending their time on. Food, a good living place, recreational opportunities, and tools to make them more productive. But for now, if you were trying to become a teacher in this, I'm guessing you're only going to make pennies, and you can't earn a living off of that. TLS is only 1/3 of protecting online communication. The last article I saved for last because I actually think it's less important than what I just said. The communication issue is a very serious problem. What I'm about to say is a lesser of a problem. TLS depends on two other technologies to function: Border Gateway Protocol and Domain Name System. Border Gateway Protocol is a protocol that allows network protocols to be transported from one router to another, carrying your network packets to what is supposed to be the correct IP address. Domain Name System translates domain names to what is supposed to be the correct IP address. There's a reason why I keep saying supposed to. Neither of these protocols gives a reliable assurance of carrying your information to the correct destination. Attackers have succeeded in hijacking BGP to attackers' IP address in the past. It's known as a Border Gateway Protocol hijacking attack. Foreign nations, such as China and Russia, have hijacked US traffic to their own nations before. That's why the government issued the roadmap to enhance the internet routing security. They know that this is a matter of military national defense. Attackers have also succeeded in replacing the correct IP address mapped to a domain with the attacker's IP address, forwarding clients to an attacker's website. This is known as DNS cache poisoning. What's odd is that the security world stresses TLS so much. To a much lesser extent, it stresses the importance of domain name system security extensions, the very digital signature system that prevents attackers from corrupting DNS records. You need to verify a DNS record in order to issue a valid TLS certificate to a domain. What's even less yet more important is resource public. What's stressed even less yet is actually even more important is resource public infrastructure. The digital signature system to distinguish if an IP address belongs to a machine under Border Gateway Protocol. If you're having problems understanding why this weird technology matters, I want you to think about it like this. Why do we care if a website says they are protected under TLS if an attacker can just remap or redirect all your traffic to the attacker's website, even though you type in the right IP, even though you send the network packet to the right IP address? Remember, you need Border Gateway Protocol to send network packets to the right IP address. If someone messes with Border Gateway Protocol and reroutes traffic to that attacker's IP address, it doesn't matter if your network packets have a destination IP address. It's going to end up in the attacker's IP address anyway. TLS and DNS both depend on BGP to function for that reason, and TLS depends on DNS to issue TLS certificates to the correct owner of domain. Yet for some reason, the importance of DNSSEC nor RPKI is not marketed well. And I'm going to give the honest reason why I think that's the case. Remember what I said earlier about how people hate doing the right thing when it costs them? Asking a network administration to go through the hassle of setting up DNSSEC, it would be a huge hassle. Not because it's technologically difficult, but because you have to go through the hassle of educating your network security team to actually deal with it. Educating people is not easy. Same issue with RPKI. The situation actually gets messier. Both DNSSEC and RPKI rely on TLS cryptographic libraries to do their jobs in reality. If you download the software for DNSSEC and RPKI, such as Routernator, you will quickly notice they use TLS libraries such as OpenSSL or GNU-TLS, ironically. I mean, the funny thing is, TLS actually depends on DNSSEC and RPKI to function, yet DNSSEC and RPKI are relying on cryptographic libraries encoded in TLS to function in the second place. Now, to be honest, there's not necessarily a technically huge issue with that, with only one exception. If there is a security vulnerability in TLS, that also means the DNSSEC and RPKI libraries are going to suffer from the same security vulnerabilities. So yes, I titled this article "Transit Layer Security is a Mess" and not RPKI, why it matters, because I know TLS is the foundational cryptographic library for network security. Today, I just wanted to share my concerns with the current state of cryptographic software development. What I said should make clear we are in a very sticky situation with cryptographic development, despite the US doing a great job standardizing the cryptography we should be using to protect our online privacy. If you liked this video, please like, subscribe, comment on what you liked and didn't like, and click on bell notifications for more. Peace.